if you want to talk about across the aisle middle ground on, our foreign policy views or whatever, we can do that. But like, you're trying to equate, like a theoretical policy decision on my life and on my rights as a human being, as a woman, as a gay woman.
All right, so I'm gonna make a confession to you, Megan, first, and that is, I have not finished your book. I will tell you what page I am on, because I used that wonderful note that you sent me as a bookmark. I am on page 189, so I'm almost done with it. Okay,
yeah, you're almost done.
Yes, but I'm glad, because it's funny. I woke up this morning to, I was like, I think I can finish this by the time our interview comes, and I didn't get a chance to I didn't read fast enough, I guess, to do it. But at least I'm glad that I did, because otherwise I would have missed my own mention in the book. So thank you for that. I was like, oh, look at this.
I hear you though. I feel that, because I'm like, I know how to read, but every time I go to read a book, I'm like, this shit is taking so long. Am I reading every single letter of every single word of every single? I'm like, why is it taking so long? It takes me forever to read. So I feel you're absorbing it all.
Yes, I am absorbing it all. But I mean, as far as memoirs go, like maybe it's a soccer player thing, or specifically a U.S. women's national soccer team thing. Because like I read Abby's book in like a day, and I think with yours this will probably take me a day and a half. So I think that as a writer, that's really good. Yeah. And I don't know if that was intentional on your part, that you want to give some. I'm thinking about Obama's book, which is 798 pages. I'm like, ooh, it's going to take me some months.
He has 790 pages of things to say, though. I'm like, how do I stretch this out? I don't want it to be like a booklet, I'm like, how do I stretch this out? Get as much. I try to, pack as much in there, but also, not bore people to death.
So I am also in the process of writing a memoir. And I think for people who have not tried this process, one, I immediately got like 20% in. I was like, whoever writes a book is totally insane. Like, why am I doing this? But it is hard to boil your life down into just very specific incidents. So how did you go about that process of like what to put in here, what to leave out? How did you manage that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I had to like get over myself a little bit, because I was like, I don't know. I'm like, is it that interesting? Like, are people really like that interested? Like, because to me, it's like I've obviously lived it. I know it. So I'm like, is this story when I was younger, is it really that important? But like I work with a writer, Emma Brox, who helped me. I mean, if I had to write this thing myself, I would be on the first letter still trying to figure out, do I start it with do I start it with my? But I think I tried to, overall, I really wanted to not have it just be like this chronological sports memoir. I did this, I sacrificed, I work hard. It actually really irritates me when athletes do that, when they lean so hard into like the sacrifice and the hard work. And I say it in the book, I'm like, everybody works hard, everybody sacrifices. I'm like, we were born with this insane amount of like just God-given talent. Like, that's a huge reason why we are where we are. It's not like, I had to, work my way into, all of these things. So I tried to make it a little bit different and give a little bit more perspective and have it be about more other things that sort of soccer was the vehicle or sports was the vehicle for it.
So, especially when it came to sharing, more personal incidents. I mean, you share a lot about your brother, and I was aware of this story that had been written or about him before this book came out, but sharing about your brother, sharing about like your family, did you have to have conversations with them about like, hey, this is going to be in this book, and how did those conversations go?
Yeah, definitely. I think those are kind of conversations that, I mean, honestly, I feel like I've been having with them. I think being from a small town, and a very conservative, white, homogenous town, coming out in 2012, it was kind of like, my mom works in a restaurant, and so people always coming through, and, it's kind of like, just so you guys know, I'm coming out, like, this is what's going to happen, and, having those conversations with them. And then obviously with my brother and stuff, we've definitely had those conversations. I started speaking about that, I think maybe 2015. I mean, I'm sure at times I've shared way too much, and they're like, we live here, right? And you don't like, this is like, people are now looking at us like, what the hell is going on? It happened with the kneeling as well. Like, I mean, my mom, like, I feel like honestly, she caught more in-person backlash and flack than I did because people never come up to me. There's been literally one person the whole time that's actually said something like to my face, like, I disagree with you. Most people are just on Twitter, but my mom's like in this restaurant, people, trying to give her an attitude, which she didn't take at all. And then, yeah, just, I definitely gave them the book before, all my family members. I was like, you guys need to read this. I want to make sure that I am telling the truth, but, some of these stories are not just mine to tell. So I definitely wanted a sign off on all those things, make sure they were comfortable talking about it. But I think it's challenged them as well to like think outside themselves or the communities that they live in and kind of expand the way that they think also.
Was anybody not pleased with how they were perceived?
I don't think so. I was really kind of worried, or tried to take a lot of care with my dad and how I sort of portrayed that, because I think in part there's two ways that I was seeing my dad. Like, he's my dad, obviously, but I think this is the story that a lot of people are going through right now. A lot of white people are going through, of like, you thought your parents were this one thing, and then they're, your dad's voting for a crazy person and a white supremacist and anti everything that I am and that I stand for and that I support. So how do you like balance those two things? And I think I tried to do that at least, but also, like, people's truth is gonna land on them the way that it was, and I'm not gonna pretend like I'm not, upset with him still about what, he supported and who he supported in 16. And I don't think he voted for Trump this time, but I definitely don't think he voted for Biden either. So I'm like, it's not great, Dad. We're gonna need to come a little bit further. But I think overall people are okay. But I haven't talked to everyone who I've spoken about, so maybe some people aren't.
Well, I could relate to that part in particular because, and people saw me say this on Twitter. I actually said it in response to somebody who was saying that, and this was not this year, this was actually maybe in 2016 or 2017. And they were saying, oh, you have to find some middle ground with people who support Trump. And, do you think you can get along with somebody that supports Donald Trump? And I was like, well, I actually don't have any choice because my mother voted for Donald Trump. So like, it's a whole lot of reasons like yourself, I'm saving for the book. And so in order to go through what I think some of those were and how it impacted our relationship, particularly when I had my little dust up with the president. And so I was very curious about how you managed that relationship, because you say in the book that after you found that out, you guys went some time where you did not talk. Do you thinking about how all of that happened and how that played out, do you feel like your relationship is still impacted by that, or is this something that has kind of eased up over time?
I think that we've gotten more used to it now, but I think it definitely still impacts the relationship. I mean, I think that, the middle ground conversation, the across the aisle conversation, I just don't really get, because we're not talking about the same thing. If you want to talk about across the aisle, middle ground on, our foreign policy views or whatever, we can do that. But like, you're trying to equate, like a theoretical policy decision on my life and on my rights as a human being, as a woman, as a gay woman. And, further than that, on Black people and on immigration, on all these things, which those are not the same things. And so I feel there's still tension there. Like, I don't think that, a ton of his views have changed, as, a lot of the country's views have not changed or even solidified even more. But I think for me, it's like, I'm going to continue to have a relationship with my dad, but at every, instance, I'm going to make very clear what is acceptable to me and what's not. And if we get in these conversations, he's trying to equate, two things that aren't the same, I'm going to say that. And I'm going to continually try to, express my position and my view about how I see the world. And I get other people see the world, differently. But I just think that for people who aren't in sort of any kind of minority, like maybe they just can't get it or don't get it or don't want to get it or aren't taking the time to get it. But like, I just feel like I have to constantly try. It'll be like, my sort of life's mission to get people to think about their place in the world. And I think just a lot of people, a lot of white people and a lot of white males haven't really ever had to assess their position in the world. Whereas, being gay or being a woman, like I always have to, of course, I always have to think about all of these things that are going on. Like, why are we teaching our girls to walk with their keys in their hand and not our boys to think about just not raping people, So it's
seems pretty simple to me. It's like,
seems simple to me,
yeah.
but it's just not something people have to think about, but just, constantly trying to like, just have a conversation. Because I don't want to cut them out of my life. I don't think that does anything either. I think that only furthers the division, but I think that you can have a conversation while standing your ground on what you believe.